The National Desk, America's News Now.
If you're going to secure the release of hostages, and we certainly hope we're going to be able to do that soon, you got to make sure they can get from where they are to safety and do that as safely as possible.
A temporary ceasefire in Gaza negotiated as a second front in the war is on the brink of escalation.
We are expecting about 2.5 million passengers a day. We think the airline travel peak will be on Wednesday. And of course, a lot of people on America's roads as well.
Storms across the country already impacting one of the busiest holiday travel seasons in history. And then new data links a certain condition to those who may develop Alzheimer's, who is at risk and why. We begin tonight with a group of 28 prematurely born babies in Egypt after being evacuated from Al-Shifa Hospital in Gaza. That's the facility that for days has been the epicenter of Israel's war in the Palestinian territory. 8 infants have died in the last month. The ones that survived and were evacuated today are all fighting severe infections. That's according to a WHO spokesperson. The transfer is due to a power blackout from a fuel blockade imposed by Israel that forced a shutdown of incubators and other equipment at the hospital. IDF forces had claimed Hamas was using Al-Shifa Hospital as a large-scale command center, and last week released videos they argue is proof. But American military officials said on Friday it could take days, weeks, or months for Israel to make a definitive case to prove that. Hamas and hospital officials have long denied the allegations. And it comes as yet another hospital in northern Gaza is attacked. This video right here showing the aftermath of a deadly strike at the Indonesian hospital in northern Gaza, leaving 12 people dead, dozens wounded, according to the Hamas-run Gaza Health Ministry. Now, Palestinian officials, they are blaming Israel for that strike. Israel not denying the fighting around the hospital, though arguing no shells were fired toward the facility. The precise source of the strike has not been independently verified. Right now, the Hamas-run Gaza Health Ministry reporting the death toll of Palestinians has topped 13,000. Unclear how many of the dead are Hamas militants, but Palestinian authorities say 5,600 of them are children, sparking growing accusations by the UN experts and others who say the high death toll points to a genocide in the making. With 1,200 Israelis killed on October 7th, National Security spokesperson John Kirby doubled down in defense.
What Hamas wants, make no mistake about it, is genocide. They want to wipe Israel off the map. They've said so publicly, more than one occasion. In fact, just recently. And they've said that they're not going to stop.
Meantime, growing fears of the conflict in the Middle East widening as skirmishes continue at Israel's border with Lebanon. Tonight, an IDF base heavily damaged by Hezbollah rocket fire, with IDF forces striking Hezbollah sites in southern Lebanon in response. This as we get a closer look with newly released video of an Iranian-backed Yemeni rebel group as they stormed a cargo ship in the Red Sea because of its link to what they called, quote, the Israeli enemy. The Houthi military taking 25 crew members on that ship hostage. The growing tensions could be mitigated by a pending hostage deal, which after weeks of talks tonight appears to be taking shape, though it's not a done deal, not yet. President Biden remaining tight-lipped about the deal, but hopeful.
Mr. President, is a hostage deal near?
I believe so, but I'm not prepared to talk to you.
Believe so?
Yes.
The New York Times reports at issue here is how many hostages will be released in exchange for the release of Palestinian prisoners, women and children, and a multi-day pause on fighting. And to Ukraine, where U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin has made a surprise visit as the U.S. also just announced up to $100 million of additional aid. Secretary Austin met with Ukrainian leaders today, including President Volodymyr Zelensky. Austin said American support would continue for the long haul. Zelensky said Austin's trip was a very important signal for his country. And President Joe Biden celebrating a birthday today. He turned 81 years old, already the oldest president ever. He is seeking a second term, prompting many to question if he is both physically and mentally fit for another stint as president. Our Scott Thuman takes a closer look.
This is the 76th anniversary of this event. And I want you to know I wasn't there in the first one.
That age-old tradition of pardoning turkeys before Thanksgiving, but it's the age of the pardoner getting more attention as President Biden Monday turned 81 years old.
Congratulations, birds.
And as he runs for re-election, murmurs about his ability are growing louder.
I would put the president's stamina, the president's wisdom, ability to get this done on behalf of the American people against anyone.
It's not just the actual age issue. After all, he may potentially have a rematch against Donald Trump, who would be 78 on Election Day himself. But it's mental fitness that's being examined. Less than a third of Americans think Biden is competent to do the job, and 64% say they're worried about his health and mental acuity. Should he win, he would be 86 at the end of a second term, and there's no arguing that one of the most important jobs in the world can certainly take a toll. Of the last two presidents who served 8 years, George W. Bush and Barack Obama looked noticeably different, although there's no way to tell just how President Biden would hold up after another 5 years on the job. In the meantime, CNN reports Biden's staff is trying to eliminate his gaffes and project vigor, getting him orthotics to help with his stiff gait and provide him smaller, shorter stairs for boarding Air Force One. Though pundits say there's a way Democrats should pitch it to voters.
Do they choose the president who has aged into wisdom and empathy and experience? Or do they choose Trump, who has aged into kind of chaos and anger and narcissism?
Of course, that's still almost a year away, and voters have yet to decide if it'll really be a septuagenarian-octogenarian showdown. And of course, we told you that Biden is the oldest American president. Next closest, though, was Ronald Reagan, who at the end of his second term was 77. Amira?
And Scott, how else is Biden's team pushing back on the critics? You would think that they would have a lot to say on this talking point.
Yeah, they definitely do. And they just keep saying the word experience, saying that in turbulent times such as these that the world is going through, that it benefits America to have someone with a steady hand and wisdom and experience, as I mentioned before, to help get through those times. The question is whether or not voters will see the president in that same light.
Yeah. The American people will decide very soon. Scott Thuman, live in Washington, D.C. Thank you so much, as always. And no decision today after a federal appeals court heard arguments related to a gag order on Donald Trump. This is the federal election interference case prosecuted by Jack Smith. Prosecutors say the order should remain to stop Trump from intimidating potential witnesses, while defense lawyers say the order is a violation of Trump's First Amendment rights. The judges at times seemed skeptical of both arguments, both suggesting that there is a threat against potential jurors, while also saying Trump can't be, quote, miss manners while everyone else is throwing targets. A decision on this is expected very soon. And the number of voting rights Act lawsuits that could be drastically cut moving forward. This is a federal appeals court ruled today that only the federal government can sue over supposed infractions to the law. Many private plaintiffs have used the courts to change congressional maps or block the removal of voters from registration lists. They will no longer be able to do so. The decision is likely to head to the Supreme Court, where at least 2 justices have written a willingness to agree with that position. Meanwhile, the U.S. Supreme Court has ruled against former Minneapolis police officer Derek Chauvin. The court rejected Chauvin's appeal of his second-degree murder conviction in the death of George Floyd. Chauvin now serving 22 years in prison. The Massachusetts State Police now has a hate crimes awareness and response team dedicated to tracking hate crimes and hate groups in the state. The new unit began following a September report by the state's Executive Office of Public Safety and Security. They cited an increase in hate crimes that has continued in the past few weeks with the ongoing Israel-Hamas war. Across the country, residents of big cities are growing increasingly fed up with crime rates rates at this point, and voters, they're opting for moderate politicians over progressives in some of America's bluest areas. National correspondent Kayla Gaskins has more from Washington.
Seattle's traditionally liberal politics shifting toward the center as a wave of new moderate candidates win seats on city council.
People aren't just hoping for change. I think the results make clear that people are demanding it.
Only 3 of 9 council members who led the 2020 Defund the Police movement are on track to return. Recent polling shows the vast majority of voters were not confident with the city's approach to public safety. The winning candidates campaigned heavily on combating crime and on hiring more police officers.
I think Seattle's still very much a progressive town, but voters want actual progress on the issues that matter most to them.
Critics going after the Democratic mayor of San Francisco, London Breed, for her new tough approach to drugs. The new policy requires addicts who want access to financial assistance to be enrolled in treatment before receiving any cash from the local government.
No, it's not always the popular thing to do, and this is not about right or left. This is about, do we want to save lives?
Politico writing, Breed is apparently doubting voters' progressive mood so much she's banking her re-election on a shift to the right. Far-left politicians in San Francisco on shaky ground since voters fed up with rising crime recalled progressive prosecutor Chesa Boudin last year. In Washington, D.C., another Democratic-led city, Mayor Muriel Bowser declaring a public emergency to combat rising youth violence and opioid addiction.
While we understand that we're not going to arrest our way out of this violence, we also know that young people need to have consequences and boundaries.
These politicians responding to public concerns. New polling by Gallup shows 63% of Americans describe the crime problem as either extremely or very serious. That's the highest number ever recorded by Gallup. In Washington, I'm Kayla Gaskins for the National Desk, America's News Now.
Kayla, thank you. And coming up, a major storm system rolling across the country. We're to expect some tornadoes, also hail, rain, and snow this week. Then why this holiday shopping season is expected to be slower than last year's and how shoppers plan to take advantage of that. Plus, brand new artificial grass was stolen from a Boys and Girls Club. What happened when the kids drew signs to deter the thieves? Well, cross-country storm is spreading east during one of the busiest times of year, the travel season. Tornadoes, damaging winds, and hail could hit parts of Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi, also Alabama and Arkansas starting tonight. Tomorrow, the storm will barrel towards the northeast, bringing rain and even snow to some areas. Those driving along the I-95 corridor should be very careful. By Wednesday, the storm will reach New England. It'll be a chilly Thanksgiving morning for most of the country, with temperatures feeling like they're in the 20s and 30s. Now, tomorrow and Wednesday are expected to be the worst days when it comes to travel. That's according to AAA and TSA. AAA says more than 55 million Americans are expected to travel this holiday, 23% more than last year. Many people are leaving early to avoid bad weather and to get ahead of that rush. Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg says the Federal Aviation Administration is working with airlines to plan for and around any bad weather and disruptions.
National Weather Service meteorologists are housed at the FAA's 22 centers handling high-altitude traffic, and they provide down-to-the-minute weather predictions for exact arrival and departure routes in the busiest parts of the U.S. airspace.
Buttigieg says this holiday season is forecast to have some of the busiest travel days in U.S. history. He adds people should check with their airlines directly for the most up-to-date flight information. Meanwhile, this holiday shopping season could be one of the best for deals and promotions. Retailers are really trying to attract customers who are pulling back when it comes to spending in the face of high inflation. National correspondent Atra El-Nashar has a closer look at what you can expect before you shop.
After 3 years of through-the-roof spending, shoppers are coming back down to earth this holiday season. A slowdown in sales growth projected by the National Retail Federation reflects a return to pre-pandemic habits. The NRF projects a 3 to 4% increase from last year, similar growth to 2019, marking an end to 3 years of growth that drained inventory.
Consumers are learning to navigate inflation.
A new survey of Black Friday, Cyber Monday plans from Deloitte finds consumers will prioritize items they expect to get on a discount, like clothing and electronics.
Consumers are looking to just kind of use these promotional events to get in and out of holiday gift giving in the most economical way possible.
CEOs of both Walmart and Target say they've noticed customers manage their budgets more carefully.
They're buying less stuff. We've seen 7 consecutive quarters of both dollars and units declining.
Throughout the industry, a decline in hiring, too. Because of high labor costs and interest rates, retailers are expected to add the lowest number of seasonal positions since 2008, according to the employment firm Challenger Gray & Christmas. Inventories are also back to pre-pandemic norms. Gone are the days of supply chain disruptions and empty shelves. And to move that inventory during a time of slowed growth, retailers are offering their promotions earlier and earlier. Black Friday now a week-long event. Same with Cyber Monday.
Consumers, I think, know about Black Friday, Cyber Monday. They know what their favorite retailers typically offer. They are kind of expecting retailers to kind of roll out the red carpet this year and move inventory.
Stores hoping to keep Americans shopping at a time when they feel the need to pull back. In Washington, I'm Atra El-Nashar for the National Desk, America's News Now.
Atra, thank you. The United Auto Workers officially signing and ratifying new contracts with the big 3 automakers today. Union workers will now see an immediate 11% pay bump and total of a 25% increase over the next 4.5 years. The new deal will end April 30th of 2028. In the meantime, the union is looking to expand to include at least Tesla and Toyota for the next round of talks. And speaking of Toyota, the automaker has been ordered to cough up $60 million to those who had loans through Toyota Motor Credit. The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau says Toyota was tricking customers into signing up for unnecessary products tied to their loans that were then hard to cancel. Despite signing the settlement, Toyota Motor Credit gave no admission of guilt. And some relief for COVID long haulers. A procedure typically used for chronic pain is showing promising results in restoring smell to long COVID patients. New research presented today by Jefferson Health shows injecting an anesthetic into a certain part of the neck helps reduce the condition. Doctors think the treatment could act as a type of nervous system reset. Research on its effectiveness is ongoing. And people with more visceral fat, which shows up around the waist, could be at higher risk for Alzheimer's. That's according to a new study in the medical journal Armed Forces India. This type of fat has already been linked to inflammation and high insulin levels, and even those with healthy BMIs can have it. Doctors say more research is still needed. Well, former Macon, Georgia city councilman is sharing his memories of former First Lady Rosalynn Carter, who passed away yesterday. Rick Hutto not only worked for Mrs. Carter, but came to know her as a friend and has an important message, enduring nature of her life's work. Here's Gloria Ruth with more.
I was greatly honored to work for President Mrs. Carter, but specifically for Mrs. Carter.
Former Macon City Councilman Rick Hutto has known the Carters for years and was part of President Jimmy Carter's campaign, later serving as White House Appointments Secretary to the Carter family. Following the death of the former First Lady, Rosalynn Carter, on Sunday, Hutto reflects on her impact of her multifaceted legacy.
The biggest thing that she did throughout her life, including as First Lady of Georgia and then First Lady of the United States, was mental health. She personally had some experiences with family members when she was younger. She saw basically the stigma attached. If you said to someone, "I'm being treated for cancer," they would go, "Oh, bless you, let me pray for you." But if you said, "I'm being treated for a mental disease or a mental illness," they would immediately recoil. They were horrified that somebody would admit to having a mental illness. So she worked very, very hard for that.
Speaking on the impact that she will leave behind, Hutto commended her work to break the stigma around those suffering with mental illness.
All of us are sad to lose her. I think what we should do, and I think she would agree, is we should celebrate what she did and what she was able to accomplish. And of course, late into her 90s, still working on Habitat for Humanity houses, still going to foreign governments to watch, to monitor elections to make sure that they were honest. She was still doing that. And I think what she would say to us is, keep doing that work. Yes, thank you for remembering me, but just keep doing my work.
Up next, how an idea for a care package for a friend turned into a donation drive for an We have reporters all across the country in your neighborhoods covering the issues that matter most to you. We are taking the pulse of America.
Thieves stole newly installed artificial grass from the West Fresno's Boys and Girls Club. Then they did it again.
They came back twice.
Club director Janice Wilson says they had just installed the grass about 2 weeks ago. She says the first time the thieves came was Wednesday night. They took a few portions of the grass. Thursday, the children at the Boys and Girls Club tried to defend their turf with signs in case they made a return.
Our kids that noticed out here, they had got together inside of the club and they had did some signs that says like you are a thief. How could you take from us?
Other signs pleaded them not to take the grass, but when they walked in on Friday,
every one of them was just ripped down. It's like they don't care. The person probably never been to a Boys and Girls Club. They probably never felt the love. They probably never knew what we do here.
At the end of October, Squadron 89 was deployed without knowing when they would be home. This hit close to home for one group of friends.
Our group of friends, and we all hang out here at O'Leary's and all that, just like, let's get something together for his team. You know, there's 12 guys on his flight crew. And then it expanded. And then by Tuesday, I was like, let's cover everybody on the base.
To take on such a challenge, they decided to host a donation drive to collect items for the holidays at O'Leary's Pub in Centerville Sunday night. As the event built traction, Viking Heating and Air donated $1,000 to help with shipping, and Blue Star Mothers also got involved.
Our chapter yesterday, we made 141 stockings that we're going to be sending out to them, and we will be supporting them, or we will continue supporting them into the remainder of their deployment.
And check out this beautiful drone footage capturing fog over California's Central Valley. The photographer was out to get a sunrise shot and had to get creative after the fog rolled in. And you can see the power lines peeking through, but just beautiful, beautiful shot there. Very cool. Well, coming up, it is the least controversial pardon given by a sitting president. We're going to give you a close-up look at an annual Thanksgiving tradition. Stay with us. Well, two turkeys got the gift of a lifetime today. President Biden making sure the two will not be turning into turkey dinner. That happened during the annual White House holiday tradition.
I hereby pardon Liberty and Bell. All right. Congratulations, birds.
How about those names? Liberty and Bell. They received their presidential pardons on the South Lawn today, marking the start of the holiday season in D.C. The turkeys both weigh about 42 pounds. Liberty and Bell will return home to be cared for by the University of Minnesota. We love to see it. And that does it for this edition of the National Desk. Thank you so much for joining us. Have a great night.